Hello everybody, this is Dan Wheeler. I've been a supervisor at the Silchester Bathhouse project for the last couple of years, and in this presentation I'm going to take you briefly through one particular element of the excavation that we've been focusing on in 2018 and 2019, and that is the Iron Age ditch. So just briefly I'm going to describe why we dug there, what we did in particular, what we found, and why that has been important in going on to the analysis in post-ex. One of the main appeals of the ditch is that it's inextricably linked to the construction of the baths itself. We know that the bathhouse is one of the earliest masonry buildings constructed at Silchester, and unlike a lot of the town, it sits slightly asymmetric to the normal north-east-south-west street alignment. So therefore it's been deliberately constructed next to the ditch, utilising the natural spring to supply water and the ditch itself to drain excess water away. So throughout the life of the ditch, it's then used as a dumping area, both for domestic detritus and also when the baths themselves are renovated, construction material is chucked in there too. So it gives us really good preservation in the wet conditions, and because it's been untouched by the antiquarian archaeologists of the early 20th century, we get a full sequence which we can analyse environmentally. So we began excavation of the ditch area in the early weeks of the 2018 season, with the removal first off of a number of Edwardian trenches which striped across the area, and also clearing away some rubble from the medieval robbing episodes. Initially we began a 5-metre wide slot which goes across the ditch, as you can see here, and soon enough we were getting into the Roman finds. As we continue to excavate towards the end of the 2018 season, we managed to get through to a lot more tangible deposits, the first of a number of layers of Roman demolition material, including these huge spreads of pink opus signinum, which is a Roman plaster, waterproofing plaster used in the construction of a lot of the bathrooms. We then also drilled a core through the remaining sequence of the ditch, which showed that having dug 1 metre, we still had another 3.6 metres to go. So, armed with the new knowledge about the full depth of the ditch, we were forced to expand the slot to 7 metres, and from this point onwards, for every metre that we would dig down, we would then step it in 1 metre for safety reasons. At this point we were firmly into the late Roman layers. You can see more opus signinum here, the pink stuff in the top left, and also this sneaky modern drain, which very helpfully had the word drain printed on it. And very soon we were fighting against the rising groundwater, which, although sticky and slowed progress down quite a lot, does make for good preservation.
Okay, go. Okay, this is trench 3, it's the final week. We're digging the ditch. We're down into really waterlogged deposits and had loads of really well preserved pieces of wood, because it's really anaerobic conditions. The most exciting of which are these two, which we found quite close to each other vertically in the ground, and they are stakes. Really well preserved and burnt on one end so that they were hardened and then driven into the ground, and we found those in situ just behind me in the ditch.
Rolling.
What's that?
Lara, what have you found?
I found this really exciting brass coin. It's Vespasian, and which means it's basically 10 years off the period we're looking for. Found it near the bottom of the ditch, 1.6 metres off the bottom, which means we're very close to the Nero layer, which we're really looking for. So,
Did you think it was gold though, first of all?
yeah, we all got really excited because we all thought it was gold, but it's just where it's been really preserved in the ditch water and has been eroded, and yeah.
And it hasn't been oxidised.
That one, yeah.
Yeah.
It has been oxidised, yeah.
So normally
They'd be all like
green.
Yeah, green and rusty. You wouldn't be able to really read any of it, but you can really see the face on the front, and you can read Vespasia along the top, which is really cool. And
Oh, so that's first century.
yes, about 69-ish, I think, 69 AD.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Share your excitement with us. Okay, now I'm going to stop.
Sorry. Now, coming over here. Your history as well.
Yeah, I've got my hat.
So it looks like it's lying directly on that waffle thing, isn't
So approximately 2 metres down in the ditch, we found this human skull, remarkably well preserved. It's of a male between the ages of 25 and 35 with no obvious sign of trauma, just missing the mandible. It was sat upon this woven roundwood hurdled object, which at first appeared to be a wicker or wattled fence that would fit in quite nicely with the stakes that we found slightly higher up in the sequence. But after full excavation, appeared to be more like a large triangular stretcher, perhaps something that was carried on the back for carrying large objects around. Nearer towards the base of the ditch, we then found a concentration of dog skulls, so 3 complete examples and the mandible of a 4th. This may be consistent with fur production, so perhaps the dogs are being skinned for their fur, but the fact that there was no other bones in this small group does suggest that there might be some other ritualistic explanation for the deposition. Upon completion of the ditch, it was then time to record and sample as much as possible in the remaining time. So first and foremost was drawing the section, which was complicated by the fact that for every metre that we had dug down, we had then stepped it in. So drawing both sides of the section was extremely tricky. We also wanted to sample the entire sequence for microanalysis using a series of plastic drain pipes, taking column samples from the base of the ditch all the way to the top. Back at the university after the end of the season, the section drawings could be collated together, neatened up, digitised, and then the locations of the column samples placed upon them. Back in the lab, the column samples were unwrapped and tidied up and then related to their correct position in the section drawing. A small number of sub-samples were then taken sequentially down each column. Those samples were then dried out and turned into microscope slides. Those slides were then analysed for things like pollen, so looking at different types of pollen tells us about the environment around the ditch as it went through time, but also things like human parasites, so whipworm, which lived in the stomachs of the people who inhabited the baths. The majority of the preserved wood was also analysed, mostly to attempt to identify the species, but also to note if there was any particular working of the wood. A number of pieces, including that of the triangular stretcher-like object, have also been sent for carbon-14 dating. Small samples were also taken from between the teeth of the skull in the hope that there may be pollen remaining, and in the future we hope to send off samples for isotopic analysis from the teeth. Sample was taken from each context from within the ditch and put through the flotation tank. This removes the bulk of the silt, just leaving the heavy residue. In the past term, our student volunteers have been sorting through these residues looking for finds, in particular looking for carbonised remains of things like charcoal and seeds. All of the CBM and pottery has also been looked at by specialists. So each season of excavation provides us with huge amounts of data from context information, drawings, photographs, environmental data, pottery dating, and lots of other specialist information. So we upload all of that information into our online database, which helps us to build the narrative of the site. Once excavations have concluded, we'll provide or publish one complete monograph of all of our findings, but at the moment we're quite happy just to provide one interim report each year which summarises that year's discoveries. Thanks for listening.